Welcome to the Leading Edge Podcast with Eric Thompson.
Inspire, perform, profit.
Okay, everyone. Hey, welcome. Thank you so much for joining as always. Hey, this is episode number 10. This is pretty cool because this is a milestone. And because it's a milestone, I just want to say thank you for all the feedback. It's been really cool to get the comments and the emails and the phone calls and even the handwritten notes. It's pretty cool to get that feedback. So I appreciate that. And you know what? The best thing you could do for me is if you are enjoying this, just give me an iTunes review. That would mean the world to me. And we'll see if we can push this out to even more people. That would be awesome. Also, because this is episode number 10 and because this is a milestone, what I decided to do is review a book. All right. So every 10th episode, what I decided to do is I'm going to review a book for you, kind of give you a book report. I love to read. Reading is a big part of my day. It's a big part of my life. I read pretty much every single morning. As I'm recording this, I'm sitting in front of about 40 or so of my very favorite books. I've read a lot more than that, but sitting here in front of my favorites. So I thought it'd be pretty cool if I gave you kind of a short little synopsis of some of my most favorite books, right? So I'm going to do that again. I'll do that at least every 10th episode. Maybe I'll do it more often, but at least every 10th episode. This is number 10, so let's do a book review. Today, I'm going to give you a book review about a really cool book called Mojo. M-O-J-O, Mojo. And you may not have heard of this book, so I'm kind of doing this on purpose because this book wasn't necessarily like hugely popular, and it's one of my favorites. This is an incredible business book written by a guy named Marshall Goldsmith. There's another one of his books that was more popular called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. You probably have heard of that one. You probably have not heard about Mojo. Mojo is an awesome book, all right? So let's dive in. I'm going to give you some of the key lessons from this book. There's some really cool takeaways in here. So if you were to pick up the book, you'd see on the cover, of course, the title Mojo, and then it says how to get it, how to keep it, how to get it back if you lose it, right? So we all want Mojo, right? That kind of conjures up a positive feeling, a positive image. When we think about the word mojo, it's kind of a fun word. There's that old Muddy Waters song, Get Your Mojo Working. You can maybe even think about that song. You can get that song in your head, right? So it's a super positive, really fun kind of concept. And so when I say the word mojo, first thing I want to ask you is who comes to mind? We talked a little bit already about what comes to mind, but how about this? Who comes to mind when you think about the word mojo? And hopefully there's some people in your life you can think about, maybe some people in your family, in your company, who's got mojo. But how about this? How about athletes? Can we think about some athletes that have mojo? The first person that comes to mind for me as an athlete is Usain Bolt. I love watching the Olympics. You know, when the Olympics roll around every 4 years, I love to watch the Olympics. Usain Bolt, we all know Usain Bolt. He's now retired, but the sprinter holds the world record in the 100-meter dash. That guy has some mojo, right? So imagine him before a race and how he's just so amped up. He's got the great positive energy. He's got the smile. His eyes are just wide open, right? You can tell he's ready to rock and roll. And when it's showtime, when it's game time, he shifts into being super focused. And then when he normally wins, because he wins about every race he's ever been in, just the awesome celebration that he has and the way he's able to interact with the crowd and get the energy up. That guy has mojo. Just so impressed by him. Seems like just a wonderful person. Another athlete that comes to mind is Mikaela Shiffrin. So I'd love to ski. That's a big thing in our family. And Mikaela Shiffrin, you've probably heard of her. She's an American world-class skier. She is just wrapping up her third straight World Cup overall title. So she's been the best skier in the world 3 years in a row. That woman is amazing. That woman can ski. And before she gets going down the slope, when she's in the starting gate, the starting house, getting ready to go, you can just see it on her face. see her expression, see her body language. That woman has mojo, right? How about musicians? Can you think of musicians who have mojo? I'm a big Coldplay fan, and the lead singer, Chris Martin, when he's on stage, just bringing it, getting the crowd amped up, so into his music and just delivering at a high level. Coldplay, Chris Martin, they have mojo. How about Prince? How about the late Prince? The guy had mojo. I was a huge Prince fan growing up, and just back in the day, just really loved his music. Imagine Prince on stage doing one of his quintessential guitar solos, just totally in the zone, just bringing it, and certainly an example of mojo. And so maybe there's some people that you can think of, whether it be a athlete or musician or actor, actress, or whomever, right? You can think of people who have mojo. So Marshall Goldsmith, in the book, he kind of gives an official definition of mojo in his mind. So mojo, he says, is that positive spirit toward what we are doing now that starts from the inside and radiates to the outside. So again, this is Marshall's definition of mojo. Mojo is that positive spirit toward what we are doing now that starts from the inside and radiates to the outside. So basically what Marshall says is that truly successful people, they spend a big part of their lives engaging in activities that are both meaningful and generate happiness, okay? So again, it's this combination of being meaningful and generating happiness. So he is a pretty well-known just business coach. He coaches a lot of corporate leaders. He works with big organizations, does a lot of public speaking. So he's asked a lot, what is it that makes successful people different from other people? What is it that makes them stand out? What separates them? And so that's his answer. What he says is that truly successful people, they spend a large part of their lives engaging in activities that simultaneously provide both meaning and happiness. So let me ask you, how about you? What is it for you that generates your mojo? All right. So when do you feel like you have mojo? When are you feeling like you're generating both something that's meaningful and something that's making you super happy? Are there things that come to mind for you? I'm sure that there are. Maybe it's things in your personal world. Maybe it's things in your business world. Hopefully, it's both. For me, when do I feel like I have mojo? Well, I mentioned skiing before. When I'm skiing with my family, oh my gosh, there's nothing like it. I feel like we, as a family, we have our mojo going. We're just having a blast on the chairlift, and we're laughing and we're telling stories, and we're loving being outside and being active, and then we're going down the slope together, enjoying that experience together. We have mojo when we're doing that. For me professionally, I feel like I have mojo whenever I'm in a coaching or training situation or a developing situation, working with another person, whether it be one-on-one, when I'm in front of a group, hosting a workshop, helping people out, teaching someone a skill, a tool, a strategy, just helping someone to be better, helping someone break through barriers. That's a big thing for me when I watch someone get through a barrier that they had, some obstacle that they thought was in their way, then all at once they realize it's not in their way. For me, that's when I feel like I got my mojo working. So that's super fun for me. So what is it for you? What is it that gives you mojo? Hopefully there's lots and lots of things. So let's go back to this definition that Marshall Goldsmith had about mojo. Again, he says it is that positive spirit toward what we're doing now that starts from the inside and radiates to the outside. So let's just kind of break this down. It's kind of fun to break out the segments of that definition. So first, positive spirit. So it's that feeling of optimism and satisfaction, something that does really convey happiness and meaning. The second part of the definition is toward what we are doing. So mojo is that positive spirit toward what we are doing. And so what I like about that, toward it implies action. So what that means is we're not like just being a witness to something cool. So we're watching Usain Bolt. He is experiencing mojo, but we're just a witness in that moment. But what is it that we are actively doing that creates our own mojo, right? The next part of the definition is the word now. So mojo is that positive spirit toward what we're doing now. So now is all about just being present in that moment. It's about that particular moment, nothing else but that moment. Happiness and meaning happen right now. And then the last part talks about mojo is what we're doing now that starts from the inside and radiates to the outside. So from the inside, only you can generate that, right? So it starts from the inside, only you generate that from your core to the outside. And then what's cool is it becomes contagious, right? So like when we watch Usain Bolt, it almost becomes contagious. Like we become happy, we really get into it, and it just radiates, right? When someone is having mojo. By the way, the opposite of mojo, Marshall Goldsmith says, this is kind of fun. The opposite of mojo is nojo. Nojo. So the opposite of mojo is nojo. So what happens? What's going on when you have nojo? Well, you know what? Mostly it's just like you're kind of asleep at the wheel, right? So you're kind of asleep. You're uninterested. It could also be that you're resentful. You know, if you're sitting there with a lot of resent, that's certainly going to generate some nojo. How about when you're playing the victim? You know, it's kind of that woe is me, and the world is acting upon me, and I can't do anything about it. That's all nojo. But you have mojo when you are like wide awake. You're so aware and awake. Also, when you're grateful and you're feeling a lot of gratitude toward what's happening in your life. How about when you're in motion? So when you're moving forward, you have mojo, and certainly when you're taking responsibility, right? So when you really take ownership, that's a time when you are going to have mojo. Now, then we get to this thing that is the catch. And Marshall Goldsmith in the book talks about this thing that's the catch. And I'll tell you that when I first was reading about this, back when I read this book, it was kind of hard to hear. It was kind of hard to take in. It was a little uncomfortable. But the more I thought about this and really processed it, I absolutely believe that this is true, this catch that Marshall Goldsmith talks about. So the catch that Marshall says is that our default response in life is not necessarily to experience happiness or meaning. Our default response in life is to experience inertia. So I'll say that one more time. Our default response in life is to experience inertia. So inertia, I-N-E-R-T-I-A. We learned about that word in physics, right? So back in the day, probably in high school, we learned about the word inertia. So we kind of know what that means. You know, I think a great metaphor is a train. You know, a train rolling down the track. A train, big locomotive, certainly it's got a whole lot of inertia just rolling along. It's hard to stop that train. It takes a lot of energy to stop that train to get it onto a different track. So what Marshall Goldsmith says again is that our default response in life is to experience inertia. So basically what he means is that our most common process, so the thing that we do more than anything else, is to keep doing what we're already doing. So we're in this pattern of we just keep going along. So we keep doing what we're already doing because we have inertia. So he says the most reliable predictor of what you will be doing 5 minutes from now is what you're already doing. And so what you're already doing is the best predictor of what you're going to be doing 5 minutes from now. So again, this may be like, if you are reacting like I first did, this may be kind of uncomfortable to hear. And the more you think about it, though, the more you process it, you will see that this absolutely is true, right? We all have inertia. We just get rolling along, and there are certain patterns, and there are certain ways of doing things, there are certain ways of interacting with other people, certain ways of going about our day, and we just have inertia, and we just keep going along, all right? So I'll tell you that in my role, you know, I play a few roles in my business. One role I play is recruiting. So recruiting is a big thing in my world, working on building up my team. And so what I say in recruiting, my biggest competition is not necessarily the other company. My biggest competition is inertia, right? So that person is just rolling along, doing their thing, and you know, kind of in their certain way. And even though I know what I offer is in many cases a lot better than what the other person has, they're just used to that way, right? So that they have inertia So it's hard to break that pattern. Also, another role I play is as a coach. And so as a coach, as I'm working with other agents, other leaders to be better, the big thing I'm up against is their inertia, right? So they're just rolling along, doing their certain ways, their certain methods, their certain ways of thinking. So in my role as a coach, what I do is I break patterns, right? So I need to stop that inertia, get someone going in a different direction. So this all kind of begs the question, does anyone change? So does anyone change? People have inertia. So do people change? Well, of course people change. We know that. We see people change. On this podcast, you've heard stories about how I've changed. You've changed. You've certainly made big improvements, big strides in your own life. You can think of big ways that you are way different than how you used to be. You've got yourself to change in a lot of ways, and we've witnessed it with other people. So of course, people change. So then next question it begs is, so how do people change? How do people change? How does that happen? Well, what Marshall Goldsmith, the author of this book, what he argues is that there's only one way. There's only one way to get someone to change, and that's with accountability, right? So when people know that they're going to be held accountable, that's really the only way to get them to change. Now, the accountability could be from yourself. It could be from someone else, a peer, a coach, a mentor, whomever, or it could be from yourself. But Marshall Goldsmith makes the point, makes the argument that people really don't change, they really won't change unless they know someone else is going to measure them. People won't change unless they know someone else is going to measure them. Now, that someone else could be yourself, right? So that one way to get yourself to change is to go measure yourself. Another way to get yourself to change is to have someone else measuring you, someone else in a coaching role. So what I do in my coaching role, I have a super simple formula for coaching that's worked for me for a long time. And that is, we identify what someone wants to accomplish, and then we identify what are the things that person must do in order to get that thing to happen. And then we just simply measure it, right? Are you doing those things? So we get clear on what those things are. And then every single week, we're tracking, did you do those things or not? And so the person who's being coached, they know that they're going to be measured. They know they're going to be measured first on the piece of paper where we're keeping score. They know that piece of paper will get shown to me. And so they know that I'm going to measure them. So that's how change happens. So change happens with accountability. There's a super simple formula for that, all right? So then we get to probably the most fun part of this, I think, the most kind of entertaining part of the book, most significant and meaningful part of the book. So there are what Marshall Goldsmith argues, there are 4 mojo killers, all right? So 4 mojo killers. These are both funny and impactful. These are insightful and humorous all at once. And so I'm going to walk you through these 4 mojo killers. So these are the 4 things that will, sure enough, take the mojo right out of your life. So we got to watch out for these. We have to not do these 4 things. So here we go. 4 mojo killers. Mojo killer number 1 is overcommitting. All right. Are you like me, someone who sometimes overcommits? So overcommitting is certainly a mojo killer. So you really have to ask, am I doing what's right for the long term rather than just trying to make people happy in the short term? What am I going to increase for my long-term happiness and meaning in my life? So you just got to watch out for overcommitting. That's mojo killer number 1. Number 2, man, this one always makes me smile and kind of smile, shake my head all at the same time. Mojo killer number 2 is waiting for the facts to change. Waiting for the facts to change. Can you think of a moment in your life, and maybe there's one going on for you right now, where you've been sitting around waiting for the facts to change? Oh my gosh, I can think of so many times in my life where I sit around and I waste time waiting for the facts to change. Because you know what? The facts probably aren't going to change, right? The facts are not going to change. And so a tool, kind of a way to break that pattern, is to just ask yourself, so what would I do? What path would I take if I knew the facts were not going to change here? So if I just accepted that the facts are not going to change, what would I do knowing that, instead of waiting around for the facts to change? So that's number 2, waiting for the facts to change. Number 3 also makes me smile and shake my head at the same time. It's kind of linked to number 2. Number 3, also a really good one. Number 3 is looking for logic where none exists. Looking for logic where none exists. Have you ever done that before? You've ever been seeking logic where there's really none existing? And it kind of begs the question, is life logical? Are people logical? In many cases not, because there's a lot of emotion. Thank goodness there's a lot of emotion woven in and built into life. So when we're looking for logic where none exists, that can really take the mojo out of us. So let's not waste time or energy trying to infuse logic into places where there's none existing, right? So just focus on making a positive difference instead of being right, and stop looking for logic where none exists. The last one, number 4, last of the mojo killers, also a really good one, is refusing to change because of sunk costs. So refusing to change because of sunk, S-U-N-K, costs. So we can think about probably lots of moments in our life where we have so much invested, whether it be money, whether it be time, could be energy. We've just invested so much, and it makes us reluctant to back out of that. It makes us reluctant to bail out of a clearly bad situation. Clearly, it's not going to go anywhere. Clearly, it's not going to work out. But we don't give up and we don't let go because we have so many sunk costs. And instead, just focus on what you would have to gain by letting go, right? So maybe there's an example of that. You haven't let go because of sunk costs. So as we wrap this up, here we're going to get to Marshall's big advice when it comes to mojo. Here's Marshall's big advice, and this is really, really good. So he asked the question, what can you change? So what is it that you can change? The answer is simple. You can change either you or it. The answer is simple. You change either you or it. And I'm going to quote just for a minute right from the book, okay? So speaking about changing you or changing it, this is quoting right from the book. So he says, by you, I mean how you think, how you feel, what you say, basically everything about you that's under your control. It, on the other hand, refers to any influencing forces in your life that are not you. It could be another individual or a group of people or a job or a place or relationship, the results of a choice you made in the past that needs undoing. It's everything that's not you. Marshall says, it's a stark, unambiguous binary between you and it. Yet a lot of us make the wrong choice. Here we get to the big point. We try to change it when we should be changing something about ourselves, right? So the big takeaway there is, are we going to change ourselves? Or are we going to try to change it? What's easier to change is ourselves. It's pretty much impossible in most cases to change it. Why not change ourselves, all right? So here's what he says as being the ground rules for our life. Here are the ground rules for Marshall Goldsmith to get some mojo. First, just identify what gives you happiness and long-term meaning. Just identify what matters, right? And get really clear about what does mojo look like for you? What does mojo look like for you? Find the things that give you both the short-term happiness and the long-term meaning. Go get clear on what those things are. Don't sacrifice. Don't just survive. Don't play the victim. Don't be asleep at the wheel, right? Be fully awake, be fully tuned in to the things that give you mojo, things that give you both short-term happiness and long-term meaning. We're going to stop waiting for the facts to change. We're going to stop looking for logic where none exists. We're not going to be hung up on sunk costs, right? We're going to let go of that. We're going to be all in. Let's go find our mojo. So my challenge to you, go find your mojo, and just like Usain Bolt, show it to the world, right? Find your mojo, show it to the world. So if you want to check out more about this book, of course, go pick it up. Again, it's Mojo by Marshall Goldsmith. It's fantastic. This has been episode number 10. Again, every 10th episode, I will share with you a little book report, some takeaways from the books that I've loved that have had a big difference in my life. If you like things like this, if you want more coaching like this, more inspiration, if you want to be better in your life and in your business, you got to check out my membership program. It's called The Leading Edge. You got to go to jointheleadingedge.com. We take things like this and we go a lot deeper. We study it. We implement skills and tools into your business to help you improve your business so that you can be better with your clients, so you can have a more fulfilling, more enjoyable, more successful life. I'm all in to help you out. You got to join the membership. Go to jointheleadingedge.com. I appreciate you. I appreciate you engaging with these podcasts, and we will catch you in the next one. Bye.